Thank you all for coming, and thank you so much for having me on a short notice. I think I just emailed you a few weeks ago, and I'm pretty honored to be the last um, presenter here, and looking forward to continue to seeing you online. I'm Siddharth. I'm a neuroscientist and a professor at the University of Puget Sound up in Tacoma. This is I would like you to, if you have any questions at any point, please stop and ask me, because I would like it to have more of a conversation as we go along. And if there are any questions online, please feel free to put it in the chat, I guess. So a lot of the things I'm going to talk about today is from my book, The Neuroscience of Tarot. I do have a new book coming out in the fall 2026 called The Neuroscience of Magick, where I'm exploring rituals, spells, how we create sacred spaces, and how we reframe our brains to kind of make things sacred or draw boundaries and things like that. So that's coming out in November. And part of that process is I've also been creating a podcast where I've been chopping up that book into little pieces and talking about it on my podcast, Neural Magic. I also have decks out here if you're interested in neuro tarot cards. So just something for you to know. So as many of you probably know, tarot cards are divination tools. Some people suspect it's Italian origin or Egyptian origin. A lot of people think about gypsies or Romanis, and some people even have links to the Kabbalah. Usually it's a deck of about 78 cards, 22 being the major arcana and about 56 being the minor arcana. And over time, there have been a lot of different kinds of tarot out there, people using their own inspiration to visually represent the images. So I came into it as a neuroscientist. So I've been a neuroscientist for about 25 years since I started my PhD. And incidentally, right when I came to this country is when my sister gave me a deck of tarot cards. So kind of my scientific journey and my tarot journey have been going in parallel to one another a little bit. So things I've been thinking about a lot is how when we go to a tarot reading, a lot of the questions we have are about our actions, our choices. Why am I feeling this way? And what should I be doing? And then, so if you think about all of those things, all of those are, require mental actions and mental processes. So that's kind of how I started investigating. Like, okay, if this is all happening in our psyche, in our brains, then there must be a neuroscience-related correspondence to what we're doing. So that was the impetus behind me kind of investigating and diving deep into this particular paradigm a little bit. So this is a typical tarot card. Many of you might have seen it. This is from the Rider-Waite-Smith tarot deck. So I guess I'm going to put it out to the audience. What do you see when you first look at this particular card? What do you notice? Anyone?
I think a dog.
A dog, okay.
The color yellow.
The color yellow. The sun. So even within like a group of people here, we've already seen like differences in what you're noticing. So one thing I do want you to take away from this is that's one reason why when different tarot readers might have different interpretations of the cards as well, because we all tend to notice and observe different things. Scientists have actually done studies of different cultural people from different cultures, and some people tend to notice foreground objects much more. Some people notice background objects much more. Some people might actually notice that this guy is moving, or there's like some kind of movement in the cards, whereas other people notice more of the static landscapes. So one thing to keep intentional is what is your eye most attracted to, and why are you noticing that? And maybe over time, train yourself to notice other things than the first thing that your eye is drawn towards in a card. So that's one way to kind of to remove biases from your reading. So what happens when you actually see an image? So when we look at an image, what happens is your things start from your eye, it goes to the back of your retina, And then from there, it goes to the back of your head. So if I whack you in the back of your head, then you'll see stars, because that's where your visual centers are. Your occipital lobe is where your visual centers are. But even at that point where the information goes, you still don't know what you're seeing. It's more of a photograph of what you're seeing outside is getting imprinted in the back of your head. It's still not at the point where you actually know whether you're seeing a person or a dog or a sun. It's more of just like, okay, I'm seeing something in front of me. So that is the main difference between seeing and perceiving. So you recognize something as an actual object when you start using other parts of your brain. And those parts of the brain, so if you run your hands along the top of your heads, so if imagine yourself wearing headphones, say, if you run your hands on the top of your head, that is your parietal lobe. And that's where you kind of start noticing things like movement. So the fact that you think, oh, this guy is almost going to leap off the cliff, or the dog is jumping up. So those kinds of movement-related stuff is coming from your parietal lobes on the top of your head. And then if you touch just the tops of your tippy tops of your ears, that's where you have information about object recognition. The fact that you can label things as, this is a dog, this is the sun, this is a person. All that stuff is coming from your temporal lobe, your memory centers. So over time, you've been taught to label different things as different objects. So those are all coming from your memory centers. Your object recognition bits are coming from there. So those two areas of the brain are really important for recognizing something and going beyond just perceiving an image to actually seeing it to be, oh, I see the Fool card in front of me. All right, so maybe I'll pop up the image once more. Let's go back. Say, take a quick look at it, and now I'm going to ask you to close your eyes. Close your eyes and picture the Fool card in your head. All right, open your eyes now. And what did you all see? Was it the same thing?
A glacier and an 8-pointed stars all over his dress or outfit.
Wow, a glacier and an 8-pointed star. All right, wonderful. Anyone else? The white flower, okay. And were you all able to see this in full Technicolor or black and white or
Full color?
Full color? Anyone else? So I have a really bad mental imagery. So if you ask me to close my eyes and picture a sunset, I can only picture those little squiggly lines that kids draw with two hills with the sun peeking out. Whereas other people have really vivid images in their heads. And this is all because we have this concept of mental imagery, where we can actually go the opposite way, where when you're asked to close your eyes and imagine something, you're using the same object recognition and object location bits of your brain to then feedback into your visual centers to say, okay, this is what I'm imagining in my head. This is what I'm picturing in my head. And for some people, you can't even picture that. They just have a feeling of, oh, some emotion related to it, or kind of an idea of what that picture is, as opposed to actually having a visual image in your head. This is kind of the big part of storytelling. So when we look at a card and start forming stories in our heads, this is because of this mental imagery thing that we have. Whether it's visual or auditory or olfactory, it doesn't matter. Like, you have this capacity to picture a scene in your head or imagine how that scene feels by closing your eyes, because the same centers that are being activated in your perception of objects is being reactivated. And you can almost imagine it as if the picture on the left is the one what you see when you are actually viewing it. The picture on the right is kind of what, when I close your eyes and ask to imagine it, it's kind of like you still get weak signals. It might not be as strong. And depending on how strong or weak your visual imagery is, it can be much more faded out or much more enhanced. So that's kind of a thing that's out there. One exercise that's available to you online, which is free, is a vivid visualization questionnaire. You can take it. It kind of gives you an idea of how visual you are. So for me, I scored really poorly on it. It's a scale of 1 to 5. I scored like a 1.5 on it. Whereas people who see in Technicolor might score a complete 5 on it. So it's one way for you to kind of think about where your strengths or weaknesses lie when I'm asking you to visualize, or when you're looking at the lay of the cards in front of you. Where does your strengths lie in the visualization process? Are you better at noticing? So one exercise in that is they ask you to close your eyes and picture your friend walking, or picture your friend. Some people can notice their faces. Some people can notice their posture. Some people notice more of their tone of their voice. So you can actually find out what you're really good at and use that in your tarot interpretations. But I'd like to say, like most tarot cards, is an image is not just an image, right? So you always have some kind of a meaning associated with it. And even here, so let's see if I show you this picture of a dining table. What are the words that you can use? Like, just say one word that you can use to describe this. Yeah. Food, okay. Warm, okay, warm. Fresh, all right. So now if I tag this particular image with a meaning, then your picture of this particular scene might change. So this could be like comfort food, or this could be like an inviting table. But I could also change your perception of this image by changing the word that's tagged to it. So now I'm talking about this picture being attached to this word lonely. Does your perception of this image change?
A little bit, yeah.
Yeah. So you have all this food laid out, but nobody's at the table. And or some people are talked about how there's such uncomfortable chairs that's around this particular table. So we not only have images in front of us, but then we are attaching words also to those images to then tag meanings and associations with them. This is a very complex process, and we use a lot of different parts of our brains to kind of bring this up. And this is kind of how complex it is. So we start with the black arrows, which are talking about the where is it and how and what is it. But then we are then using our emotions. So when we looked at that particular piece of, we looked at a table, whether you felt comfort or whether you felt it was fresh. So those kinds of things are coming from your emotional centers. You might have had a lot of really good experiences at the dinner table, and that's coming in from your memory centers. Or you might have had bad experiences at the dinner table, and that's also coming from your memory centers. And finally, you're also using your current emotional state. So if you say you were looking for parking and you had to run in, and so right now you're sitting in this talk where you're like very agitated, then your response to this image might be very different. So that's coming from your prefrontal cortex, which is right in front of your, right above your eye sockets. So right there is your prefrontal cortex. So that part is where your current emotional state is. And then you're finally integrating all of that together in that light blue area right in the center. So that's where it's called the cingulate cortex. So you're kind of putting them all together in that light blue area. And that's where you're kind of creating the story narrative about this particular image along with the words that you have. You're saying, oh, this table means that there is a comforting dinner in front of you, or a very sad state of affairs of this dinner in front of you. You're kind of forming an association and a metaphor using that master integrator right there, which is the blue area with there, which is called the cingulate cortex. And we are doing this so quickly. It's like really fascinating to think about like how quickly we kind of come to this particular, it's like a snap thing that you're coming out. And that's kind of leading into all the stories we're creating. That's not me, right? Right? Sorry.
I always have it on silent.
That's all right.
I'm so sorry.
Don't worry about it. So now that let's say in a tarot reading, you are first forming the narrative. You're looking at the cards or the display of images in front of you. But then we go to that next step of intuitively saying, okay, this is what is going on in your life, or these are the choices that you have in front of you. And this you're leading with what is your called your intuition. So what is intuition and where is it processed is a question. So this is a kind of an exercise I ask folks to think about is, can any of you kind of think of an intuitive decision you made in your life without knowing why? Can you give an example?
I think it comes from my gut, honestly.
Okay. Anyone else? Where does your intuition come from? Your heart area. Okay. And intuition is where it is called the gut feeling. And but even though it's called the gut feeling, it comes from different parts of the body, which we'll talk about in a second. But you just know that something is right. But think of it as your brain is wearing a blindfold, so you don't have all the patterns, you don't know all the parameters, but you have to make a decision, and you're using your blindfolded brain to make the decision. So there's like an unconscious processing of everything that's going on around you that's leading you to the conclusion. So in this case, this person is choosing the first choice as the one that they want, and they have no idea why they made that choice, but they just know that this is the right choice. So, and usually there's a judgment of the situation, whether it's a right or the wrong response. And the reason we have intuition is if I start working out logically at every single part of my life, how I should respond to a situation, I'm going to be paralyzed because I don't have all the information all the time. So we must have, like if there's a lion coming in front of you, you need to know immediately, okay, should I like climb up the tree or run away? Or should I like, just like lay down on the ground dead? So it has to almost be an immediate, quick reaction that you have to do. And so you cannot think about logically, oh, if the lion is running this fast, then I'm supposed to do this. If we start thinking that way, you'll be dead. So we have this kind of intuitive processing to help us choose which choice to make. And the interesting bit is that intuition is not instinct, it's learned. So it is the best choice to make in this current situation. It might not always have been the right choice. So you kind of go back and learn, hey, the last time I faced this, I did this, but actually the outcomes were not that great. So I kind of go back and learn, okay, the next time I'm facing with the same pattern of information, I need to make a different response. So intuition is something that you learn over time. They actually say that kids start learning to be intuitive, honing in on their intuition, starting about 6 years of age. Till that point, they're learning from everybody around, like, is that face a frown? When I did this, is that happening? So they're kind of learning through all that stuff to figure out what their intuitive processing is. And around 6 years of age is when they start recognizing what would be a good intuitive response or a bad intuitive response, and so on. I don't know if you want to do this exercise. Do you think we can? What do you think? Yeah. Do you all have decks of cards? Otherwise, I have decks you want to do. You just have to shuffle a bunch of cards and split them into 3 parts and figure out if you gravitate towards one pile more than the other. So do you want to pick up cards? There you go. You can also split the cards. You don't have to have too many cards with you. You can just split them and use them up. Is there anyone online? No. Okay. If you are going to listen to the recording later, you can split that into 2 and give half to him over here. And you're going to split it into 3, or split it into 3 parts, and then you're going to randomly pick one pile. But before you pick the pile, think about why you are drawn to one pile versus the other. So you're going to shuffle them, split them into 3, and then you have to choose one. Think about why you're drawn towards one of the decks or not. So as you move towards picking one of the piles, think about, do you feel like an easing of tension in your shoulders? Do you feel your gut check saying, oh, this is the pile I want?
My mind just instantly said number 1.
No, mine saying number 1. Okay. Anyone else? There's no right or wrong answer here. So
You look like my wife, like this one.
what do you mean? What do you mean? It looked like she liked this one. And what guided you to put your hand on that?
Steve was thinking of on top.
Okay.
The way I can arrange it.
All right. Cool. Anyone else? Last one. Okay. So now that you've picked the pile that you want, try and reach towards it. But as you reach towards it, forcibly move your hand away from that and try to pick something different. And think about if you feel resistance in picking a different pile or not. So these are all things that happen within us. So when we are making a choice, so let's say you're answering questions in an exam and you want to mark A, but you're forced to mark B, think about where you feel that resistance. Do you feel it in your shoulders? Do you feel it in your back? Where do you feel that resistance is something that you might want to start noticing. So some of us are very aware of these and some of us are not. So that's something for you to think about. So this is the first part of the intuitive thing that's going on. And it's all coming from a part of our body called the interoception. The idea is that we all know of our 5 senses, which is external perception, about seeing, hearing, tasting, and so on. But we also have a whole bunch of sensors inside our body. So we have stomach sensors, which are measuring how much our tummy is clenched, how much it's relaxed. So when you talk about butterflies in my stomach, you literally are feeling that lightness in your stomach. Or your lungs have all these little like alveoli, which have sensors in them. So when you can feel like my chest feels lighter, that might be because your chest is expanded and there's a lot of air inside. So you actually feel lighter. Or when your heart is beating faster or slower, you can actually recognize it. So there are a lot of sensors all through our body that's kind of giving you information, sending information unconsciously to the brain all the time. In a way, I'm glad we're not consciously aware of it, because we'll go crazy if you know every single thing that's happening inside your body all the time. You'll kind of go crazy about it. So you really want it to be hidden. But if I right now asked each of you, how fast is your heart beating? You might not know, you might not be able to give the right answer right now. But if for the next 2 weeks, if you consciously notice how fast your heart is beating, then at the end of 2 weeks, you will be able to pretty much say, okay, my heart is beating about 70 beats per minute. So you'll be able to actually start honing in on some intuitive bits that's going to help you understand what's going on inside your body. So this is something that I'd highly recommend you thinking about. Interoception is kind of refers to the internal body changes that's going on. It could be mechanical, chemical, pressure information, chemical information, immune information. That's all constantly being processed inside your body. And different people have different sensitivities to this. There's a really interesting quiz online called Maya, M-A-I-A, which is a free quiz. And what they found is it kind of tests different interoceptive abilities and found that different people are actually attuned to. Some people are much more attuned to, say, their shoulders. Some people are more attuned to their gut. Some people are more attuned to their heart, and so on. So there is a different range of interoceptive awareness. There's no good or bad, but it's more about, do you notice happiness within you much more, or do you notice sadness within you much more? And those kinds of stuff is something you can figure out with this particular test. And most of the interoceptive processing happens in that purple bit in the middle called the insula. This is, some scientists think this is the seat of consciousness, because in a lot of meditative practices, the insula quietens down completely. And they think that it's almost like becoming, losing awareness of the body is kind of what they're thinking, that when you get into that detached state, the insula is the one that quietens down. So they think that that could be kind of being conscious that you're in this physical presence. The insula, it has a representation of your entire internal body, is something that we found out. And so a lot of people think it's the bridge from the inside to the outside, and it's really useful in your intuitive processing. And the other thing that's coming up now is how interoception is related to emotions. For a long time, neuroscientists were thinking that when I say I'm feeling sad, that the brain is saying, okay, I'm feeling sad, and then that then goes off into the body to say, okay, I'm feeling sad, so I'm gonna frown, and my body is gonna droop, and I'm gonna feel lethargic. But now we have found out it's almost the other way around, where your body is experiencing and physiologically responding to a situation, and then the brain then labels that as a particular emotion. So when you are reacting with your physical body in a certain way, then your brain then interprets it and labels it as a particular emotion, is what's coming out right now. So, so when you look at this particular object, or card of the moon, some of you might say, oh, this card makes me feel happy, or this card makes me feel sad, and so on. And that's because you have past experiences with this particular card, and that's kind of influencing how you're going to react emotionally to a particular card. And that's going to affect how you're intuitively responding to the narrative on this. And one thing to think about there is to figure out if you can affect your processing using how much you're influenced by external influences when you're looking at a card. So for this, what I would like you to do is to pull out a card from the deck. Each of you have some cards, so pull it out. So you don't have to open it yet. As you're opening the card, look at this image on the screen. And then using that, now you can interpret your card, like how you feel about the card in front of you. Anyone wants to respond? Like what did they pull, and did the image in front of you influence how you responded?
I got Queen of Air, and how I'm interpreting that as more influenced by drawing that card a couple of other times this week in like a certain situation. So I'm more influenced by the memory.
But the memory of it, okay, that's interesting. Okay.
Seems like it's
Contra-intuitive kind of.
yeah, exactly. Almost makes it but really
Yeah. So one, I ask people to consider how much their images they've seen right before a reading, or when you're going in for a reading, how much what you've seen is going to influence what your how you're interpreting the situation. So think about that, and maybe figure out what grounding practices you need to do to clear your mind before you let those biases affect your reading, is something to think about. Because your intuition or the immediate interpretation of the card in your tarot card is going to be influenced by images or memories or stuff around you. Another way to think about it is look at the card that you pulled out, but then use this as the image to interpret the same card, and whether that influences how you're looking at the image in front of you.
I'm noticing that does change it a bit, but also the other picture was a little more consistent with the artwork on this card.
Mm-hmm.
So there's more of a contrast there.
Yeah.
That's also standing out.
And these triggers are pretty instantaneous. The physiological response of your body to images like this is almost immediate. And so you have to be noticing those kinds of I wouldn't say do it all the time, but every once in a while, keep it as an exercise to say, okay, I'm going to actually physically notice what's going on within me in a step-by-step fashion. So that'll help you kind of train those muscles of saying, next time you notice, oh my God, I'm drawing back when I see this card. Like, is it something else affecting me, or is it actually like I'm picking up on something else? So it's good for you to kind of stop and pause and do these exercises every once in a while. So the steps that's going on here is we're getting some sensory signals that's coming in from the outside, and your brain is processing it and sending it down mainly first to the hypothalamus. Your hypothalamus is an area. So if I took a pencil and I shoved it up your nose, so don't do it at home. You'll kind of hit your pituitary and then your hypothalamus. That's your master hormonal control. And the information from the cortex is going down to that orange area over there, which is then immediately triggering all kinds of physiological reactions in your body. So it's going to trigger a hormonal response. Am I going to get agitated when I'm looking at this? And then your face expressions might change. You're getting bodily changes. Am I going to withdraw from something, or am I going to feel all fuzzy and want to hug something? Your autonomic responses, are my pupils dilating? Is my lung expanding? So all that is happening immediately. So your physiological changes are then going to go back and kind of tell the brain, hey, I've experienced these before. So what does that mean? And then the brain then uses its labeling power to say, hey, the last time my heart was beating really fast and my stomach was clenched, it meant I was anxious. So this particular thing in front of me is a situation where I'm going to interpret as being anxiety inducing. Or the last time I felt this lightedness in my heart, in my chest, and relaxing of my shoulders, I felt happy. So that's what this particular thing means. So it's kind of going backwards that way. And this is kind of the breakdown of that a little bit. So you have information coming in, and then your physiological changes of your heart rate, blood pressure, all that changes. Your pupils dilate. You have physical changes in your face or your body. And then you get the evaluation. There's a positive thing or a negative thing. And then what does it mean? This means I'm anxious. And then, okay, what am I going to do about it now? So this is kind of the processing in which you're responding to different stimuli with either a particular emotional or some kind of a behavioral choice. So these are all the different things we're using for intuition. So we're using our situational cues, so our present situation, your internal senses. You are also using your emotions and your memories. You're kind of putting it all together. Intuitive decision-making is about 8 seconds faster than logical decision-making. And they mainly studied this in surgeons and athletes. So when you're cutting into a body, and you start a bleed, if it starts bleeding, a really expert surgeon is going to very intuitively say, okay, I see the bleed. I'm going to push my finger here and stop the bleeding. So they're going to make it much more quicker, as opposed to someone who is, say, a new Grey's Anatomy intern, say, who's like, oh, I read in the book that if I went in there, I cut that artery, so I need to plug it there. So by that time, the patient might die. So they have actually found that the intuitive decision processing is coming more because people have done this over and over again. They're becoming experts at what they do, and they kind of go back and study mistakes. So that's kind of how intuitive processing is developed. So these are the main areas. So your current emotional states, your emotional, emotional info, and the memory context. And the main integrator for your intuition is that green area in the middle called the caudate nucleus. So you're kind of putting it all together and kind of spitting it out as, okay, this is what intuition is. This is what my intuitive decision is. And how to become better at intuition? Practice. So if you're a tarot reader who's not sure, you can actually, that the nice part is you can become better at your intuition. And the one thing I would say is, once you make your interpretations, go back and say, okay, what did I notice in the lay of the land that made me decide this was the outcome? What made me decide that this was the particular choice someone had to make? So go back. I wouldn't say do it for every single reading, but I would say every once in a while, kind of take a step back and say, okay, did what I say make sense? Did I make a mistake in my interpretation? So go back and try and hone up your intuition a little bit. And what they found is if you are an expert at this, you're using all those parts of the brain, as opposed to if you're still looking at the little white book that comes with all the tarot cards. You're using only very few centers, like your current emotional state and your memory centers is what you're using if you're a novice, as opposed to you're using the integrator of your intuition if you are much more of an expert. So you really need to kind of hone in and kind of do as many readings as possible and so on in order for you to get better and better and better at your intuition. So I'm going to pause there and see if you have anyone has any specific questions. Something is unclear at this point. So I'm going to pause there and I'll start. You're all with me so far? Okay. So insight is something that comes later. It's not something that's that you get immediately. Insight is something that comes later. It's a question of, I had 3 cards in front of me and I interpreted them this way. You ask, okay, why did I do that? What made me choose that? Or I walk into a house and I see, I'm like, oh, I can't, like, I'm not going to buy this place. I go back and say, okay, what about that house gave me that creepy feeling? So it's kind of comes later. And when you're kind of working through it, it's called the aha moment. Literally, the scientists call this the aha moment generator, where they're like, oh, I picked choice A because I noticed a rainbow in a pot. So the gold might have been behind that particular choice. So you kind of go back and reflect on to see why you made the choices that you made. It's almost like digging into your unconscious to figure out what patterns did my brain notice in order to make that particular choice. And then think about, was that the right choice? Was that the right interpretation? And so on. So if you want to think about it differently, the intuitive processing is all unconscious, happening below the surface. And then so you get a lot of inputs and then it activates different things. And the intuition is one way for you to resolve a particular problem. So at this moment in time, I need to make a choice. So I'm going to, it kind of gives you what is called as cognitive ease. So it kind of lets you move on and move forward. And then later on, you kind of think about it and say, oh, maybe you're taking a shower and then it hits you out of the blue. So you kind of think about like what went on. So insight is something that comes in a more of a conscious processing that helps you understand why you made the choices that you made. And they are very different parts of the brain. So the blue bits are the insight bits, and the pink bits are the intuitive bits. And so you're using very different parts of the brain for intuition and insight. So this is a fun exercise I ask people to do. You all do have sheets in front of you, or you have notebooks. So draw a house, tree, and a person. Right. This is fascinating to me. So each of you had a very different take on it. So the first instinct of you to draw it a certain way is your intuition. Now think about, why did you draw it that way? Was there a reason? So some of you had everything together. Some of you had the things separately. Think about, what kind of tree did you draw? Did you draw a Christmas tree? Did you draw some other kind of tree? What did the house look like? Was it a house with a roof, with a chimney? So a tree house. So think about why you drew it the way you did it. Some of you here have a lot of distance between the different figures. So think about, again, what motivated you to draw it that way as opposed to house tree person. Like some of you had everything together. So that is kind of the insight bit. So it's a simple exercise for you to kind of hone in on the intuitive bits of you and the insight bits of you. And you can kind of do other exercises similar to this to kind of, again, work those muscles in your, I shouldn't say muscles in your brain, work those circuits in your brain to become more and more attuned to gaining insight from your intuition. And until we do that, you're not going to get more and more of an expert in your intuitive aspect of things. So kind of always take a step back and say, okay, what made me do that? Why did I do it that way? Is something for you to work on. So you're all intuitive, I guess, and you can learn to become better and better at it. And also one main thing I think a lot of us, at least I didn't used to do it before, is kind of to take pictures of my readings and say, okay, this is how I interpreted it, and then go back and say, okay, did that actually come to fruition? What patterns made me do it, and so on. And do listen to your body in all these processes and learn what part of your body is responding to different intuitive decisions. And yeah, I'm going to stop for questions.
So question.
Yeah.
So if you look at the image and you first need to start generating thoughts,
Mhm.
as opposed to just kind of feelings, does it a good time to step back and take it slower and notice your feelings and how they then lead to thoughts?
So you mean you're
Like,
having
like, I guess
you're
like-
having like a narration without any emotion, is kind of what you're
Let's say
saying?
you were to pull out a card and start see and thoughts about it.
Hmm.
Does that, if you basically jump to that first, have you missed steps? Maybe you could if you intuitive.
No, I don't think everything needs to have like a huge emotional change in you. In fact, I would say the other way, especially if you're reading for somebody else, and if you are having big emotional fluctuations, then you might want to check. There's also a really interesting test called the emotional contagion test, whether you're picking up on the emotions of the other person. So is that affecting your reading? Is something that you might want to think about. The one part I didn't touch on is I'm going to talk about this in the tarot conference tomorrow. It's a social cognition. So when you come to me for a reading, and I'm going through a 3-step process. First, I'm understanding what your emotional state is, and so I'm kind of creating a mental picture of it, and then I'm mirroring it almost. So that's the cognitive empathy bit of it, where I am. So if you're feeling sad, even though I might not physically show it, my brain is saying, "Oh, this person is feeling sad." So I'm mirroring what you're feeling in my head. And then the final bit is mentalizing, where I almost create a golem of you in my head, and then say, okay, this person is feeling sad because he has these desires and aspirations, and this must have gone wrong in order for them to, behave this way. And this is happening like so quickly because we are doing this instantaneously. We have this capacity because we have to literally judge everybody we meet on the road all the time. Are they going to like, attack me, or like, should I run away from them, and so on and so on. So we have this capacity to mentalize, and we're using those same circuits in order for us to interpret cards for other people. So that's what's going on. And so I think if you have a narration in front of you, I think it's okay for it to be devoid of the emotional context right at the beginning. I don't see any issue with that. Other thoughts, questions? Yeah.
What role does the object play in this? Because it seems like you're putting most of the onus on your interpretation or on the reader.
Do you mean the card itself? Yeah. Is that what you're asking?
Yeah.
What do you
yeah,
mean
or
object?
yeah. Well, I guess, yeah, in this context, the card.
So this is fascinating to me because Mary Greer, who's written a lot of tarot books, talks about cards and what is the image of the card showing you, and that's the first step. And in fact, she asks the reader to ask the person who's coming in for the reading to say what do they see in the cards to kind of be the first choice. There's one exercise in the book that I talk about is if someone comes to you and asks a question and you're shuffling the cards, as you're laying out the cards, have you already answered the question in your head? Or are you waiting for the images to pop up before you answer the question? So that is something to think about is, have you already like said, oh, this person it's not going to work out, or have you already said that in your head and then just using the cards as a tool to kind of justify it? Or are you actually looking at the cards to interpret what you're saying? So that's, again, a really good exercise to break down at what point in your reading have you made the interpretation. So that's something to think about. So a lot of this is about where does your own biases or interpretation is coming in. Are you really letting the cards lead you, or are you like just using your own I want to feel happy and comforted by this, so I'm going to give you this, as opposed to laying out the truth for the person who's coming to you.
The cards are always very honest with me and don't tell me what I want at all. But I also like there's something where I know how much your own interpretation can cloud truth, or I guess like the reality of matters. So yeah, well, typically I don't use cards for that reason. For matters of important decisions, I use a coin. And just yes or no, and ask yes or no questions. And it's not based on my interpretation. So that has never led me astray either. So I'm just wondering, like, I'm just like curious about this, like how much, it's like the object versus your interpretation. And I don't like to leave a lot to interpretation where I can.
Yeah, it almost seems like to me you are using more of your your internal gut sensations much more than the objects in front of you itself is kind of what is. But the way you just phrased everything, it's like that yes or no, that's kind of giving you like, yes, I'm feeling good about the reaction, or no, I'm not feeling good about it. So you're kind of almost using that internal gut reaction as the way you're pretty aware of your bodily changes. Is kind of what I'm coming to. The way you expressed it, that's kind of what's coming out. So
I'm totally not understanding your response right now.
So I feel like when you're using the coin, you're relying more on your internal sensations, as opposed to when you're having the cards, you're adding one more layer on top of it, where your internal sensations need to make that narrative in front of you.
Oh, because I feel like I'm actually doing the opposite by like reducing it to a simple yes or no answer that cannot be interpreted. And it's like I have a yes and no coin, and I'll flip the coin, and it's like, and I phrase it in a yes or no question, and it's like there's no need for me to interpret yes or no.
Which is why I feel like you're much more attuned to your internal senses, that you know, because for a lot of people that yes or no is not that easy to make that choice.
Oh, I just do what it says, or I'll just accept what is shown. I'm like,
Okay.
okay, that that just solves the matter.
That's pretty powerful, I would say. Yeah.
I do, for the point I was saying, maybe it's one step where I will, flip the point. If I really feel like I can't choose between one A or B, flip the point and then see how I feel about it, right? And then like, if it turns out, no, I didn't want that, then I know for sure that it's not correct.
Okay. Okay.
So it's my response to my response to it.
But I guess the next time I would say pause and say, okay, where are you noticing the negativity or the positivity in your, like, at that point? Think about where in your body are you feeling it, and that might really help you like hone in on that a little bit.
Is that focusing on where in the body? Is that basically kind of a practice to map a sensation to?
That's a really good question. So actually they did the whole body map of like where you feel like different emotions, and they did a cross-culture analysis for people from here and Thailand and stuff. And they found that pretty much across the board, everybody feels things exactly in the same places. So when a lot of people, when they say where they feel depressed, they feel like coldness and heaviness in their legs, and they're kind of almost losing sensation there. Or a lot of happiness comes from the heart and like kind of feeling full and expansive. And it was weird to even the scientists to see this cross-culturally, that where you feel these things is pretty much the same. And you literally take crayons and color in like where do you feel upper ups and downs in your body for different emotions. You kind of try and map it out. It's really fascinating to think about.
I wonder if there's any correlation between that mapping out and in astrology, the parts of the body that are ruled by the sun.
You mean the astrological correspondences?
Yeah, like when your feet feel like this is Pisces.
I don't know.
I don't know. I just think I might investigate. Maybe
Yeah.
there's not at all. But
I was going to do brain correspondences with astrology, but I was not thinking of it that way. I was thinking more of, they say self and the other, right? The first house is the self, and the 12th, and then so if that is the case, then what are the astrological correspondences mapping out to different brain areas that are thinking about those particular things, like your own money versus other people's money and things like that. But those kinds of correspondences can be drawn to different brain areas.
through an individual's chart, or just like starting with Aries and going around.
Just individual charts.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Just
Yeah.
wondering what you
Yeah. Other questions? Well, I'm here, so you can like chat with me, and we can stop the recording maybe, and then we can just chat. So yeah. Thank you. Should I do anything here or not?
Don't worry about it.